What is up? What is up? What is up? Happy Sunday, happy Sunday, happy Sunday. It is Coach Lee, your productivity and accountability coach, here for another Sunday of, you've guessed it, the Success Starter series. Y'all know we go live each and every Sunday where we talk about different tips and tools to help you to get your week set up for success, because in doing the work to get your week set up for success, you're doing the work to get your life set up for success. And we got another one, but we're coming into like the end of June, which means we're coming into that official halfway point of the year. Yesterday was the first day of summer, so happy summer, even though it's been hot already. Depending on where you at in Florida, it has. And so today I want to dive in and talk about essentially preparing for that mid-year, talking about your mid-year reset. And as you think about what that means and what that looks like, you'll have to, obviously work through and identify what that means and what that looks like for you in your life and this stage. But I know for me, as I'm coming into this mid-year reset, I've been really thinking about essentially doing a hard reset. Really checking in and looking at some of my goals that I set and things like that. And a realization that I had that I think I've been toying with, but like it materialized and I really identified last week, was that I don't think I want to set yearly goals anymore. I want to focus more on those quarterly and monthly goals because it gives me a little bit more control. And I know setting goals isn't all about control or predictability, but for me, what I'm finding and what I found is that my life got a lot of moving pieces. And these various moving pieces affects my ability and my capacity to focus on and work on my goals. And when I talk to you guys about looking at and utilizing your capacity to help you as you go about setting goals and doing your brain dump, making your to-do list, that kind of gives me the indication that for me, maybe I need to step back from the yearly goals and focus maybe more on 6-month goals, quarterly goals, monthly goals. Because even though I don't have full control even on that amount of time, I have a little bit more foresight and predictability, especially because of the fact that I'm planning goals in 3 different areas, like life, business, and work. And oftentimes my full-time job can dictate my capacity in terms of business and life, because while I still have weekends and evenings, sometimes my evenings, for example, if I'm in trial, look different. If I have to travel more, my lunch breaks might not be for business, things like that. And so because of that, I want to be mindful and be more intentional, because I can look at some of the goals that I set for the year and I'm kind of like, girl, what you thought you was doing with them? Like, where they at, where they going, what you doing with that? And so I want to kind of use me to help you to do a reset or prepare for a reset. And we'll dive in and we'll utilize the L.E.E method. We'll talk, we'll look, we'll examine, and we'll create that game plan to execute to help you to see what's still working for you and what needs to change. Because if you find yourself like me, approaching this halfway point of the year and you like, why do I feel behind? What am I even doing? What were my goals for the year? Yeah, let this be your wake-up call that something's got to give, something's got to change. And the thing that has to give and the things that has to change isn't me telling you to hustle, because y'all know we anti-hustle and grind. It's moving and positioning yourself to be in better alignment with the reality of your life and your situation and what that looks like and showing up. And like, I had every intention of doing a masterclass this weekend, but as life started life, and I was like, do I really have the energy or the capacity to put into creating and marketing the masterclass? Like, the information that I'm going to deliver, like, it's in my head, I know it, but to like create a workbook, to market, to, that extra level of oomph that goes into marketing, I didn't have the capacity to do so. May was busy for me. I did 2 trials and went to a training in 1 month. So it was like trial, break, trial, training. Like, and then that brought me into June feeling like I was behind for May, so trying to revamp and play catch up. And so I want you to kind of look at, yes, look, because we're finna dive into the tools. Look at what that means and look at what that looks like. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what, oh, there we go. Let's talk about that reflection aspect. and doing so without shame. So what I want you to do is um, lead your life with intention. We were talking today on Clubhouse about celebrating those small wins. And initially I removed the word small and just talked about celebrating wins. So I want you to first reflect and do it without shame. Because you can't reset and you can't create this new plan if you don't actually take time to figure out what worked, what didn't, what needs to change. Too often we avoid reflecting because we don't want to face the shadow. We don't want to face what didn't get done. So we just keep setting these goals and keep making this progress and keep going forward without actually doing anything about the past, changing anything in the past. And I can say that I was guilty of falling into that trap. Like at the end of each quarter, which is probably why I'm in this place now, because we're coming up to the end of Q2. Like at the end of Q1, I remember looking back at my yearly goals and being like, okay, let me make this a focal point for Q2. Hasn't really happened. When I look at and think about my quarterly goals, I'm looking at my dry erase board over here because it's over there. I've done half of my quarterly goals, like getting back into blogging, using my email list, where like two of my quarterly goals in terms of business, that's happened. The masterclass, like I said, that was a pivot, so maybe I'll do the end of the job. We'll have to figure that part out. But resetting is important, and the only way you're going to be able to reset is in reflecting. And so in doing that, you can look at and ask yourself, what goals did I set? What goals are still like in alignment with where I am? Look at what worked. Look at what didn't. And even look at what are you avoiding? Like, what are you avoiding looking at? And the flip side of that could be, what are you excited about? Like, what are you looking to dive more into? Because you have to understand that you're not behind. You could have outgrown some of the goals that you, which goes kind of with outgrowing it. You could have outgrown some of the goals that you set, or your life could be moving in a different direction, because we can't predict the future. So when you set those goals, you had a vision or idea of where your life was going or what was going to be happening, but the reality could be something different. And the reason I use work as my anchor point is not because work is my identity or work is all that I do, but because of the fact that I know I don't want to bring work home. I don't want to stay late to work. That might mean, or at times, depending on my appointment, like, depending on what's on the calendar, that can affect like how I use my lunch break to work my business. And so work is my anchor point, because if I can understand my capacity at work, like in May, knowing that I had these 2 trials, knowing that I had travel, I was intentional about slowing down in the month of May. Now, that kind of bled into June, not because of anything that I forecast or I envisioned at the time. And I know I talked about it the other week with how additional roles were are additional cases essentially are being assigned. And so because of that, it's not so much affecting my capacity, but it is in a sense. It's not making me bring work home. It's not making me work late, but it's requiring a little bit more go from me than my typical stationary time. And for me, summer was supposed to be this slowdown time because of what my calendar looked like. And so because of that, I created a plan for working my cases to preparing to get ahead, essentially. But that's not the reality that I'm living in. And so me using work as my anchor point, because if I am really busy at work, I don't want to also necessarily have really busy times in my business. Like, I don't want to be go in work, business, and life. That leads to burnout. That leads to stress. That leads to overwhelm. And so by understanding that and being able to identify that, you're looking at the data. You're looking at the facts. And looking at the data and looking at facts helps you not to fail. And when I say helps you not to fail, nothing is ever a failure, because to fail is your first attempt at learning. And so as long as you're learning from the information that you're being presented with, i.e. that data, that facts, and making changes and adjustments accordingly, you good. And so if you can look at that, then you're able to lead your life and lead where it is that you're going. And so if you can look at what did and didn't work, like asking yourself those questions, you're then going to be able to examine, now that I know what worked and what didn't work, now that I understand what goals that I had, if they are or aren't in alignment, you'll be able to examine, like, what type of reset do I need to do? Is it a soft reset? Is it a hard reset? Is it a mini reset? And these words just, they don't worry about what they actually mean. I'm just using them for now. What I mean by, like, what type of reset, like, essentially what level? Because maybe you look at your goals and you're like, okay, I'm on track, or these are things that I still want, these are things I'm still pursuing, I just forgot to look at them. So how can I incorporate this into my monthly planning, into my quarterly planning, to make sure that I'm looking at them? Maybe you look at those goals and you was like, who said that? Or maybe even look at the goals and you're like, oh, I'm way past that. And so you make some type of adjustments. And so when you're looking at, or examining at this point, when you're examining how to reset, or what type of resets do I need for my goal, you can understand that we're going into Q3. We're going into the halfway point of the year. We're not in Q1. Because oftentimes a new year brings this new energy. Not saying that you can't let this reset be a new type of energy for you, but what I mean by that is oftentimes the new year kind of comes in with this new type of energy, and so you typically have more energy to do and go. So you're typically more enthused to, like, be and go and do all the things. And you don't look at it as hustle. You look at it as hard work. And so if you can look at it and understand that summer, this ain't Q1. Because also, it's hot outside. So, sometimes that energy that you got to move when it's cooler, because you're not, like, walking outside and just turning into a puddle. So you therefore have more mental space and mental capacity. And y'all might not realize that that's a thing. But, like, you're exerting energy. What you need to understand is that as you reset, I don't want this reset to be a reset of hustle. Because I don't know how many times I got to tell y'all, I don't want y'all to hustle. I'm not hustling. Which is why I'm doing, for me, what is going to be a hard reset. For me, it's not a soft reset. It's not like let me just tweak some things. It's a full reassessment, I guess you can say. And that's going to take time. And identifying that and understanding that it's giving me the place and the space to really say what's going on. Like, if your energy has changed, if your environment has changed, your goals should too. If you look at, from that reflection aspect that we were doing in the look phase, if you look at these goals and these plans and these ideas and all the things that you have for this year, and maybe various things could have changed. Maybe the relationships or the partnerships that potentially you have for these business ventures don't exist. Maybe you didn't have partnerships or things like that, and now you do. Like, so much can change. Like, maybe you changed jobs and you made these plans based off of being at one career or one job, and now your hours change for work. And so these things in this life that you created based off of that don't work. I often talk about it when it comes to creating a schedule. Even the whole idea behind the masterclass that I was going to do this weekend was going to be about creating your summer schedule because of your time, your energy, and your capacity looking differently. We have to do these resets and these check-ins, which is why when I tell y'all to do your brain dump and make your to-do list each week, that's a mini reset. But when you plan for your month, that's what you're doing as well. Now, in planning for the quarter, that's on a little bit larger scale because we're talking 90 days versus 30. And so with that, you're understanding and you're looking at, how can I simplify my goals? One thing that I realized last year was that I set too many goals. And I tried to do better about it this year. But what I realized is that I did just the same thing. I just made it look differently. Like last year, I just set goals. So I set like 10 goals in 10 goals for work, 10 goals for business, 10 goals for life. First of all, last year was the first year that I set work goals. So who am I over here trying to set 30 goals? Bruh, what? Absolutely not. So this year, I caught myself doing it differently, and I had this different goal-setting system that I used from a course that I had taken, and y'all, we live and we learn. So what I caught myself doing this year was setting less goals by setting intentions for what I want in each area of my life to look like. And then to decide, what does it look like to reach this intention? What does that look like? Those are goals. So I set like 3 focal areas with work, 3 focal areas in business, 3 focal areas in life. And then I came up with 5 things under each of them of what that looks like. Bruh, you did worse. That's 15. Somebody help me. While I can help y'all get y'all life together, don't think that I'm perfect. I'm still over here getting my own life together. But the thing is that I do the check-ins to realize the error in my ways. I realized it, I believe, in Q2. But I was like, no, we're going to just choose focal areas and it'll be fine. Like, I attempted to make it better. Yeah. Child. When y'all hear me at the end of this year talking about setting goals, don't. Ask me if is it for January or for Q1. Because them the only goals we set. I mean, at the end of the year, like, for that time. Y'all, I don't even have the words. Instead of always trying to do something new, how about we recommit to finishing one of them things that's been lingering, one of them projects, them tasks that's just been lingering back there. Or instead of doing something new, let's improve the current system, i.e., my attempt at improving my goal setting system. We doing a hard reset. Yeah. Because what I've noticed is that lately I've been struggling to hit my yearly goals because of this whole issue. But when it comes to like my monthly goals, I've been pretty good about hitting those. My quarterly goals, a little shaky, but then yearly goals, child. The yearly goals that I'm good at hitting are the ones that can be quantified and broken down into quarterly and monthly, like my running goal. Because I'm ahead on that. I'm like 10, 15 miles ahead on that bad boy. So what does that look like in terms of execution? It looks like structure with flexibility. I did a blog post and I did a post on this actually kind of talking about this yesterday about how we need to have the structure in our schedule, but we need to still have flexibility. So essentially what I'm saying is don't be so rigid. Give yourself wiggle room. Give yourself grace. Because of the fact that we can't predict everything that's coming up, everything that's to come, we can't create these plans that are just so dun 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 dun. Because what happens when done don't done? When done dings. Then you're looking at your goals and you're looking at life like, guess we done. No. They talk about like the 80-20 rule when it comes to like working out and eating healthy. Create an 80-20 rule, so to speak, for your schedule, for your planning. 80% structure. And it doesn't have to be like this exact percentage, but I know people have heard about like the 80-20 rule when it comes to food and nutrition, so that might be an easier thing to like identify and quantify and kind of like visualize that. Like, for the most part, I stick to this, but on special occasions, I adjust. So with your schedule, I stick to my schedule unless on special occasions, I have to adjust. And now the special occasion might not actually be special. It might not be something you want to happen. Like, it could be like, for me, a trial. So therefore I have to make sure I adjust my schedule accordingly. It could be like this week I have to go to the Orlando office. Okay, what does that look like in terms of like schedule or abilities or like things that I potentially have scheduled for after work that day, things like that. And so the structure part of your day is understanding whenever you're like work blocks, like understand those non-negotiables. Like, when are you working? When are you not working? What are you working on? Your workouts, your meals, your whatever that might look like for you. Whereas that flexibility is some of that buffer time that you give. Because I talk about it all the time. We underplan. Even as much as we overplan, we think it takes less time to do something than it actually does. For whatever reason. It could be some random distraction, technology, and like, oh, okay, I'm in the middle of typing, but now something froze or locked up, so now it's taking me longer because I got to wait for this to reload or something like that. It could be distractions. And so I don't necessarily want you to build, but for some of you, it is what you need, a tighter routine. Because for some of you, you have no routine, so it's not that you need to build a tighter routine, it's just you need to get a routine in the first place. But you don't need like this more stringent, this tighter routine. You need a smarter one. And the best way to create a smarter routine is building in buffers, building within that system and that structure, like the buffers, these breaks, these times of reset. So like for me, my weekly, the same thing I tell y'all to do, weekly brain dumping and making up my to-do list, things like that. Because what do we talk about when it comes to productivity? It's not about doing more, but it's about doing what matters most. And so if you can choose, understand, and identify what matters most in this day, in this week, that gives you the structure to know that these are essentially my non-negotiables. And then you still have the flexibility to work on other things as you have time, or these special projects, or hey, can you help me with this? Yes, but like yes, during this time, or whatever that might look like. And so we're not going into the back half of this year. We're not going through this summer with this hustle mentality. We're resetting. We're resetting, and we're resetting not only the physicality, but that mindset. Because what do I say? If you shift your perspective, if you change your mindset, you can change your life. If you can change the way you're looking at things, which is why we walk through the L.E.E method, look, examine, and execute. And the execution is this structure with flexibility. If you can change the way you look at planning, structuring, summer, your goal setting process, and do the work to realign yourself or check to see if you're in alignment or what adjustments or shifts need to be had, then you'll be able to actually do and execute. And you won't be putting yourself in that position to where it feels like, if I'm going to go after this goal, I got to hustle. And so the reason, like I said, that I've been decent about, my monthly goals, pretty okay with my quarterly goals, but my yearly goals have been a little rough. But because I'm anti-hustle, I'm not hustling to make it happen. It's just, this is going to be part of the reset. This is what's next. And so if you can look at what worked, what didn't work, all of that, if you can examine what type of reset do you need on your goals this summer, then you'll be able to execute. You'll be able to build a schedule, a system, a routine that has the structure that you need, but also gives you that flexibility for when life lives, to live life, and all of that. And so as we prepare for July, let July not only serve as the midway point of the year, potentially be that full mid-year reset for you, but also just to be your monthly reset, to realign yourself with what still matters. Like what still matters. To rebuild and restructure your schedule to support the life that you're currently living. And to let go or release any of that guilt that you might feel about pivoting or changing directions. Because it has to work for you. Because if it doesn't work for you, it's not going to work for you. And so even as I revamp and make adjustments, when I can identify that things aren't working, you can do the same. And you can do the same with the support or accountability and the help from someone like me. So if you know that this current plan ain't working, and you know that something needs to change, but you might not really be sure on what that is that needs to change, let's fix that. Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. You can drop the word reset in the comments or head to the link in my bio and book a call. But let's get this mid-year reset together. Let's get back in alignment. Let's figure out what needs to change. Like, what type of reset do I need? A hard reset? A soft reset? Something in between, depending on what area of your life or the goal it is that you're looking at. And so I want you to stop over planning, stop panicking. I don't want you to feel drained, busted, disgusted, scattered, overbooked, stressed out, overwhelmed. None of that. That's not your portion. That's not what I want for you, and that's not what you're meant to have in your life. So if you're looking for that support, if you're looking for that accountability, you can comment the word reset or head to the link in my bio. But let this be a part of your mid-year reset. Let this help guide you as you look to see what worked, what didn't work, what did you get done, what did you not, as you examine what type of reset do I need in terms of my goals, and as you execute in terms of putting that game plan into play to give you that structure but flexibility that you need. So it's been Coach Lee, your productivity and accountability coach, here for another Sunday of You've Guessed It, the Success Started series. I'll see you guys next week, same time, same place. Until next time, Coach Lee is